Alright guys, Hayzink here, welcome back to the channel for another Street Fighter Duel video. And it's one of these videos where I need to talk about something that is not only bugging me, it's actually a major issue within the game. And a lot of you are not going to like this video, I can tell you right now. But if you listen to what I'm saying, you will understand the problem that we have and why I'm talking about this, because it is a major issue, okay? And that issue is basically, ultimately, one of everyone's favourite fighters is ruining the game. Plain and simply, he is ruining Street Fighter Duel. Which is a shame, because I actually love this unit, right? But I love this unit for the same reason that everyone else loves this unit. Scores go Giga Chad, right? But ultimately, what is his main strength is becoming a downfall for Street Fighter Duel. Let me elaborate, right? So, just very quick snapshot of the game at the moment. Let's go look at Guild, right? Let's go to Guild Shadowlands. Let's go to Path of Fire. Let's go to the leaderboard. What have we got? Fedon team. Everybody running Fedon team, right? Let's go to look at Guild Crusade. What have we got? Leaderboard. Team. Fedon team. That's me, obviously. Next one, Fedon team. One down, Fedon team. I could keep going, right? Let's go and look at the current event. So if we go and look at the current event, Elegant Duel, let's look at the leaderboard, okay? Sagat Boss, Hayzink, 8.144 million. Billion. 8.144 billion, right? I will look back to this because this one is particularly important, right? Let's look at the previous boss, Vega, who was used. Main score, slight variation, but still Fedon team, right? Look at the top one, Balrog, again, slight variation, still Fedon team. Now, as you can see, every piece of PvE content that's against any kind of boss is being dominated by the Fedon team. Now, everyone knows that, that's not really a surprise to anyone, okay? Now, some people would argue, okay, but if everyone's running the Fedon team, then does it really matter, right? Well, it does, right? Let me explain. If we look at Guild again, for example, you've got these Guild bosses. Each of these bosses were different in some fashion, okay? You had the spider boss, you had the two angel and devil type boss, you know, like the chick, one was sitting in the chair, the other one's flying, and you've also got this one. Each of those bosses used to have like various different strategies where you could use different teams to score better against them. Now, everyone runs the Fedon team, okay? Basically, the game has descended to every single boss within this game. You need to run the Fedon team. Even if you do not like that team, you have to run it, because if you do not run that team, you simply cannot compete in any way, shape or form, okay? Also, with regards to normal bosses that have more than one boss, okay, like the Masquerade Ball, if you do not run the Fedon team, you cannot use your other teams to try to influence the score, because even though people say, oh, it doesn't really matter, most of your score, you would beat the person below you based on the other teams that you run. So yes, okay, everyone runs a Fedon team, then it really means that team 2, 3 and 4 is what's actually winning it for you. So team building is actually still important. Well, I would actually argue that if we look at this score here again, that is not necessarily true. 8.144 million. You could literally take my other 3 teams out of the battle and I would still win, right? There is too much RNG involved, because running this one, I've been able to get consistently between 6.5 and 7 million. I've not had the 8 billion again, sorry. But even if I was to just do that, I would still, do you know what I mean? RNG, get it, bang, there you go. That's me got my score to beat the rest of the other team members, the other players within the leaderboard, okay? Now, why am I talking about this? Because ultimately Street Fighter Duel's greatest strength was team building. It was team variation. It was finding ways to use different units, utilize different units within your box to develop new strategies, to beat bosses, to beat content. And that was what was keeping the game relatively engaging. Okay, now people were already saying that doing this event, this exact layout, is boring, they do the same thing all the time. That is a common thought that people put out there. However, people always end up, who continue playing, they end up having fun, mainly from this part of the event, because you have got these different bosses, you used to find different strategies to try and take them on, to try and beat them. But now that element of monotony, of doing the same thing all the time, that you had here, has now transplanted to here, because you're now running the exact same team composition all the time to try to get good scores. Because unless you run that Fedon team, or some slight variation of that Fedon team, then it doesn't even matter about your other 3 teams. Because if you tried to be different, if you tried to go out there and go, I'm going to take a stand, I'm not going to use this team, I'm going to find something else, you will not even remotely come close to entering into this leaderboard. Okay, now that is a problem in itself. Games have meta, right? If you go and play any games, there's OP units, right? There is, but it's quite rare that there's only ever one, right? It's pretty damn rare. Okay, now Vega is good, hands down, right? Vega is probably a bit too good for PvP. He's an absolute monster. He's okay for bossing, right? I mean, if it was not compared to Fedon, you would probably say he's pretty good for bossing. But everything now needs to be compared to Fedon, and a unit that does 1 billion compared to a unit that can do upwards of 8 to 10, then that unit immediately looks mediocre. Okay, so the problem I see here is Fedon has become a requirement, right? And to be honest, when you are being kind of forced to use something, it takes a lot of the fun away from what you're doing, right? And a lot of people who are watching this will say, Hayzink, you're complaining about a unit that helps free-to-play players compete to get leaderboard results and leaderboard rankings. I would actually argue, honestly, you are only getting leaderboard rankings with Fedon if the other people in your battle zone are not very good, or in your server, battle zone, whatever, they're not very good. And I say that because any player, okay, who is willing to just simply play manually, right, that's it. That's the level of skill you need, right? You just need to play manually. If you're surrounded by whales who refuse to use manual, who only use auto, then okay, Fedon is the great equaliser for you, okay? But if you're a free-to-play player and you are in a zone with whales who know that you can't do that anymore, you're not going to beat them. You're not. He's not an equaliser for you, and not in any way, shape or form, okay? Now, Fedon, yes, he can do good things for you if you have not got him at triple S, okay? But if you look at Bakar here, he's using an A rank Fedon, getting a great score out of him, okay? If you look again here, next one down, he's using an S rank, getting a great score out of him. If we go to here, you'll probably see similar things. Nah, that one's not quite the same. We won't go to there, we'll go to the next one. Well, we already know about Bakar. A-top, you go, great score. But again, the main difference here is if you look with regards to the one I've got here, I think this one, 4.637 versus 4.340, so fairly similar because he's got his Honda level to 2 stars. And if we go to Bakar, 4.1, oh, wait a minute. But yeah, actually, there you go, bit of variation, didn't use Fedon. Well, fair play, Bakar, you're actually one of the first people to, Honda, sorry, you're one of the first people to actually break the mould. Let's go to the next one down, trying to see A-top. There we go, like a full billion difference in score, right? So while you can still do pretty well using Regal Honda, sorry, at A, who is key to the main Fedon setup, right? You can use him at A, but clearly if you're using him at SS, you're getting more score, right? So there is a benefit to using Honda at SS. So if you're surrounded by Wales, they're probably going to have Hondas who are a higher rank than you. So really, Fedon isn't actually levelling any playing field for you. You're just being forced to use a unit. Now, again, I actually like the unit. I just don't like the fact that the meta has evolved to be a compulsory meta, where, again, essentially, unless you're willing to do this, you are not going to be able to do anything. There's one other boss. If we go and look, Celebration Night, Gate of Glory, Leaderboard, Trial of Flame, Hayzink. What did I use? A variation or straight up Fedon setup. If we go to the next one, Tree of Trees. This is my guildmate. I'm not going to take any more attacks. I've already said I'm not going to take any more attacks in this. A variation of the Fedon setup, right? Every single where you go, you are going to find that that is the only way to rank in events. That is not good for the game. That is not good for the game, no matter what way you look at it. It's not good for the game because it's monotonous. If you're just running the same team, the same strategy, pressing the exact same attack combos at the exact same speed at the exact same time every single time, you are going to get bored. Players will get bored, players will switch off, players will stop playing. It's just a fact of how things are, right? The being able to use new units, being able to put your favourite units on a team, being able to actually have a chance using a different strategy, doing something a bit different, is what keeps these games engaging. It keeps people playing, it keeps people, I guess, spending as well. But as it stands right now, there is literally one place within the game where you have still got that freedom to do that, and it is here. But the problem is, this is for a very small pool of players. A lot of you guys watching this video might only ever qualify for the qualifier. You might never actually make it to the top, what is it? I don't even know, 64 or whatever, right? You might never make it that far, and even if you do, some of you never make it out of that bracket. So your scope for experimentation is minuscule. It's very, very small. So where you get to actually play about with units, where you get to experience like trying these different team comps, trying these different things, is from the PvE bossing. Let's be real, that is where it's from. And the fact is, you are pretty much hamstrung and you're being forced to use one specific team every single time without fail. And if you don't, either if it's a one-off boss, you're out of it straight away, or if it's a multi-boss, you can experiment all you want, but if you don't have at least one of the teams being that Fedon team, the rest of your scores, you may as well throw them in the bin because they're not going to matter. I just think it's a big deal and a big problem, and I honestly don't know how they address it, because if they were to nerf Fedon, I think people would go mental, right? But ultimately, if they nerfed them, everyone would experience the nerf at the same time. It wouldn't actually make the difference that you think it would make. The only difference it would make is it would mean that other teams start to become relevant again, okay? And I don't actually, I'm not someone who really pushes for companies to nerf characters. I really think they should be bringing up other characters to make them comparable to a certain extent with the OP characters, rather than bringing the OP characters down. I mean, that's why they have systems in this game like Soul Power. In this instance, Soul Power's not enough. They would actually have to rework some of these Soul Powers to make these units be a little bit more competitive, okay? But for units they've not done it for yet, they could certainly do that, okay? And the answer isn't, okay, we'll go in and we'll give Dalsim unlimited stacks of Burn, or we'll give Trendy Kami unlimited stacks of Thunder. You know, stuff like that isn't going to actually do it. You have to spread it about. It has to be a lot more than just one or two units, or you're just always going to be stuck in this rut of specific characters, specific teams at all times, okay? Again, it's not uncommon to have OP units, but usually you have lots of OP units, and some OP units will be brilliant against one boss, but then in the next boss, maybe not so much. Maybe you then have to go on to a different boss or something along those lines, okay? Now the only way, other than nerfing or buffing these other characters, the only way I think we could see the meta being forcibly switched up, which I do think it needs to happen, right, is if they started to introduce resistances to bosses. So the next boss, for example, would be immune to flame damage. At that point, people then need to start thinking about, okay, well, I need to use this unit, that unit, this unit, that unit. The boss after that, I mean, I suppose anytime you don't make the boss immune to flame damage, it's going to be the Fedon team every time. You see the issue here. They've backed themselves into a corner that I don't know if they realised that they were causing to happen, and I now don't know how they get out of it. I really don't, because bleed doesn't work the same way as flame. You can't build it up in the same way. Poison, I'm not 100% sure how poison works, to be honest, because we've got like one poison character, so you would need to introduce a whole bunch of others. Thunder, shock doesn't work the same way as burn. It's not as effective as burn, you know. Maybe it would be if you could put the stacks higher. I don't think you can though. Let me just double check this. I've got a feeling that the answer here is no, right? But shock takes thunder damage equal to 10% of attack. Each attack received for 6 seconds stacks up to 10 times. Right, and if we compare that to flame, burn, promote, skill, look here again. Target loses HP equal to 7% of attack every second for 15 seconds, stacks up to 20 times. See, the issue here is there's not a cap. Right, if you compare, like, see if you take that, target loses HP equal to 7% of attack every second for 15 seconds, right? If you compare that to bleed, okay, so we go back to bleed, we look here, and again, we go to skill, and we look at bleed, you can see that it causes the target to lose 2% max HP every second, capped at 30% of attack. See that capped at 30% of attack? That's what stops bleed being on the same level as burn. So you can see the issue there, right? Either to, I guess, allow other units to, I guess, perform the same kind of function as Fedon is, you could remove that, remove the cap, because by not removing that cap, you're essentially taking something that is very similar, but you're restricting one and not the other, right? And if you look at the percentage as well, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Causes the target to lose 2% of max HP every second, capped at 30%, versus burn, which is up again. Target loses HP equal to 7% of attack every second for 15 seconds, stacks up to 20 times. There's no cap there, but it's not like target loses HP equal to 7% of attack, capped at 30%, right? So you can see the difference. It's like, this actually makes you lose HP faster, okay? But it's not capped. So this is where the problem lies. And again, I don't really like nerfs. I think buffs are a better way of doing things. And honestly, maybe that is the solution. Maybe the solution is going in, and maybe it is simply removing caps that other units might have on their damage thresholds. You know, you don't really have that here with shock. Target takes thunder damage equal to 10% of attack for each attack received for 6 seconds. Maybe if that was changed to target loses 7% of HP equal to 10% of attack for each attack, stacks up to 20 times. Make it similar, you know, because as it stands right now, again, flame, mainly Fedon, because his stacks can go higher. Flame is just so unbalanced at the minute that it just doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. You see it here. You can do it with this guy as well. He just can't build stacks as fast as Fedon. If he could, he would probably be on that level. But then, again, having 2 flame units that just outperform everything else in the game doesn't make sense. So they do need to address this somehow. A lot of you probably don't agree with what I'm saying because you're just happy, you're looking at numbers and you're going, oh, but you need to think big picture here. If people just constantly only have the option of rolling out one team over and over and over again, it's not going to end well. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, I don't think this is negative. I just think this needs to be addressed. I really do, right? I win. So it's not like I'm coming at this from the point of view of, oh my god, I can't win, right? It's not like that at all. I clearly can use this to my advantage, but I would rather people around me were able to compete and not be forced to just use the exact same thing. And because I've got a lot more levels, I naturally do more damage, okay? Because even though we are level neutral in events, we're actually not, okay? Just to be clear, we are not. Because if we go back in here, and you can see that if we go to Bakar, he's got 283 for his level, and if we look at me, I've got 289. Now that might not sound like a lot, right? That's 6 levels, but I get an additional 1% boost to, I think it's all my stats for each level. So I've natively got like 6% more stats than the person below me. So naturally I am going to do more. So there is not this neutralizer that people think there is. And I just think that it would make more sense to have more options where smart players again could rise up and they could start doing more within these events. Because as it stands right now, you either follow the herd and do the same as everyone else, or you're just going to get left behind. But anyway, I've been Hayzink, thanks for watching. Big long video, didn't mean it to be. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.